Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Leadership Lounge. My name is Tasneem Ali, and I'm with Sophia and Alison, and all three of us are leadership coaches. So today we're going to talk about making decisions based on fear, and what does that look like? So let's really go first into what is fear-based decision making. And it generally happens when you're afraid of a potential outcome that can have a negative impact on yourself or the people around you. And when you come from a place of fear, it almost becomes a virtuous cycle. And you keep going on the hamster wheel, which becomes faster and faster with age and can actually lead to paranoia. So let's take a step back and really understand what is fear. All of us feel fear every now and then, but what happens when fear takes over and how does it impact the decisions that we make? So fear can actually interrupt the neural pathways or the processes in our brains that allow us to regulate our emotions, to process information in a positive way that is presented to us. It also makes us react rather than respond. That affects our behavior. It also actually impacts our ability to pick up nonverbal cues, and which is really big for me. When you make decisions or based on fear, it actually prevents you from acting ethically. And that's really big. Imagine that because you're so fearful, you're not making decisions which are right. So now let's take an angle from people perspective and how making fear-based decisions impact the people around you. So for example, fear of not being liked. I think this is very, very prevalent in women, and women who are listening to this will probably, understand and reflect back in themselves. We do this because, we generally say yes to something because we're so afraid of disappointing somebody else or not being liked. And this is a classic people-pleasing behavior. And we often say yes to things because, you want to be seen as helpful and likable. And therefore, are you making decisions which are right rather than which may impact you negatively? So that's, again, out of fear. Another way could be, and this is a big one that we see in teams and in businesses and corporates, is fear of conflict. Whether it is keeping an employee that isn't working for way too long because, telling somebody they're not doing well is uncomfortable and we're fearful of how we will be perceived. Not pushing back on client requests when they come through and they're unreasonable because, it's telling a client who's paying you that this is not working or this is how things should be. Again, you're fearful of losing the client, losing the revenue, and that can have a negative impact on your decisions. And then just possible sources of conflict. I mean, if you're making decisions and you're afraid that it's going to cause conflict within the team, other people are going to challenge you on your decisions, and therefore you're making a decision that I'm not going to do anything because people are not going to be comfortable with my decision. I'll have to defend it. Then is that right for the business? Is that right for the team? Is that right for the people around you? And probably, I suppose, lastly, fear of judgment. I mean, we all are fearful of judgment, right? And this last one, from my perspective, it sneaks up on you and you don't even know it. And it's like it prevents you from doing things that, because you're afraid of being judged, you're afraid of being embarrassed, you're afraid of being shamed for doing something right. But because they don't think it's the right thing to do, you will feel shame, and therefore it'll stop you from making the right decisions. So I suppose my takeaway here is that how do you overcome this? How do you move from a place of, making decisions based on fear? Not making decisions based on fear is the opposite of it, is having courage. Making decisions is never easy, especially when it comes to making the right decisions for the people, because it's not just one person, it's your entire team that is being affected, and ultimately it's the entire business. And therefore, if you as a manager or as a leader start making decisions based on courage, what is right, and therefore knowing when, if you have conviction, then you can gather up courage and you can make the right decisions and let fear sort of put aside the fear of judgment, fear of not being liked, fear of conflict, and that'll help you be more ethical and have integrity in how you lead as well. So, Sophia, do you have any experiences of your own which have impacted you personally, or what you've seen in your clients or your team?
Yeah, wow, that was a really great introduction. And, going through all those different fears that we have. I meet clients and when I work with teams, that some people will always say, no, I don't really have any fears, but we do. And they will steer us. They will steer our decisions, and they will block us. They will change our behaviors when they trigger us. So what I would like to bring in here is that due to different reasons, so those reasons that you were mentioning, Tasneem, we can have a fear of authority. So whether they're going to like us, or is it a rejection, or is it being scolded? Is it so having that fear of authority or fear of your manager is something that I have seen a lot when I speak to my clients. I see that it holds people back a lot. I have also experienced a lot when I was earlier in my career, that I kind of opened the door for that fear to grow on me. So what I mean by that is that if you in your role at work start to feel that everything you do, you're always having this fear of your manager, of the authority, of something that will happen, then you will filter your own creativity, your own thoughts through the mind of your manager or that authority. So when we are that manager, then sorry, I have my child calling me. You have to go. So we are home here for a vacation. Alice, du måste gå. So she does not have a fear of authority, let's say that. So she does not at all care about what would happen. Anyway, so to bring me back to what happens at work when you have a fear of authority is that you will filter your own creativity through that manager or that authority. And you as a manager should be very aware of as well if you create that type of culture in the company, because you will lose out on something much more valuable instead of having that relationship with the team where they are kind of fearing what you would do. So, but like what you were talking about, Tasneem, this fear might be triggered by different reasons, but what I see that a lot. And what I would do differently today is that due to my own personal growth, my own maturity, not only in seniority, but also in the way I see things and giving perspective to things, I would not open up that door to that fear as much as I do. And I do see that we do that. We kind of allow that fear to come in, and some people think that it's normal, so to say, to have that fear. So that's what I would say, really try not to open up that door too much, because I do think that the fear doesn't have to be so real as it seems for you as an employee if you are living with a fear of authority and management. What do you think, Alison? What have you seen throughout your career?
Yeah, no, absolutely. This idea of awareness is so incredibly important, because fear drives so many of our decisions. It's unbelievable, but we're not really aware of it. You know, for years, I've been thinking I've been making all these career decisions because, you know, this is what I wanted, and, you know, this is what you do in investment banking. But a lot of the time it was actually, you know, fear-based decisions. And looking back now as a coach, I can just get really curious about what's been going on in the past, and from what I've seen from myself and from other leaders in the organization, and the effect that they have on other people as well. So if you become aware of these fear-based decisions that you're making as a leader and say, right, you know, I'm making this decision now. Am I making this decision logically? am I making this decision with emotional intelligence? And am I using my gut instincts as well to make this decision? Or am I afraid of something? Is there fear of failure? Is there fear of success that's driving me? Is there fear of judgment that Tasneem was talking about? You know, there's all kinds of different fears that, you know, really impact our decision making, but very rarely are we actually in mortal peril. You know, that is the ultimate fear, and very rarely are we actually in mortal peril. But it's still, all these other factors still drive our decision-making process that are all really rooted in fear. So like career-wise, for instance, 10 years ago, I decided to move to Germany from Australia, and I'd been in finance for 10 years before that. And I had a master's degree in finance and 2 undergraduate degrees and things like that. And I had all these finance experience and finance contacts and everything. So I thought, okay, I'm going to start in finance when I get to Germany. And it's like, but I don't really want to. But so my heart was telling me, are you sure? But logic was driven by fear, thinking, well, if I don't get into finance, what else am I going to do? Am I going to enjoy it? I don't know. Am I going to find a job? Am I going to find the right connections? You know, am I going to run out of money? Am I going to do this? Am I going to do that? So I ended up getting back into finance for another 7 years, which I can't regret. You know, there are no mistakes. But at the same time, it's like, what would I have done if I hadn't been afraid? And now, you know, you can kind of, when you realize that that's what's happening, you can dig into it and say, okay, this is fear-based. What I'm deciding now, that's fear-based. So what's the worst that can happen? And dig into it and say, okay, if I can't find a new job, how true is that? And what's another alternative? Well, I could find another job, but maybe it doesn't have enough money. Well, how much money do you actually need? And really drill down and say, is there any basis in this fear? Are you in mortal peril? And if not, well, you know, think logically, think with your heart, and think with your gut as well. And do something that aligns with your purpose and your values. And that is always going to be the best decision that you can possibly make as a human being, as a leader. And if you can coach your team like this as well, so to help them make the perfect decision for them as well, not based in fear, that's, you know, coming a very long way as a leader as well. So I would say, let's go and hit that fear in the face, and let's you know, move forward our life without fear and make really strong decisions. So thank you again for joining us on the Leadership Lounge this week. I hope you found this discussion really interesting. I know, like all of our topics, we could talk about this for days, but if you've got some more suggestions for any future topics, we'd love to hear from you, and we'd love to know what you think about this topic as well. So let us know just down the bottom in the commentary, and we will talk to you next week. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.